Hello, everyone. So, a couple of you wrote to me and asked for my thoughts about the recruiting issue in the military. And one person specifically asked, would I recommend that my son and daughter join the military? Well, my answer is absolutely not. In good faith, I would not recommend that. And that's not because of lack of patriotism. I am passionately patriot about being an American, about being a Marine. And my son also served as a Marine infantryman. So, but the issue really is the military is quite frankly broken. The senior officer leadership is terrible, in my opinion. The culture is flawed, and generally, a lot of the leadership is in it for themselves. And you can see that by all the way up to Secretary of Defense. I mean, look at Secretary Austin. He used to work for Raytheon, military industrial complex, and I guarantee you, when he leaves his office, he's going to go back to the military industrial complex. Same with Jim Mattis, General Mattis. He's highly respected throughout the Marine Corps as a warrior monk. But the guy, is at General Dynamics right now. And Thoronis is a company that, fleeced billions of dollars from investors. And he was on the board of that and was pitching their product, which was basically a fraud, to the military. There's a blood testing scam that was going on. In addition, you got Joe Dunford, former chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. He works for Lockheed Martin. And there's General Petraeus, highly respected, as the savior of Iraq and Afghanistan. He works for one of the largest private equity companies in the world, $500 billion worth of assets, and they do an incredible amount of work in the military sector for the U.S. government. So all these people, the senior leadership is really focused on themselves. How can they benefit from their positions? So the culture is fundamentally flawed. Our children are not stupid by any means. They may, communicate in different manners through social media and whatnot, and their interests may be other. They're not aligned with how we were raised. But at the end of the day, they're pretty astute and they're pretty smart because of this global communication at the speed of sound. Social media bounces all over the planet, and quite frankly, they don't want to go fight for Taiwan. They don't want to go fight for Ukraine. They don't want to go to fight for Israel. And the other countries that the U.S. is obligated to defend. We've got, over 800 bases and facilities in 78 different countries. It's absurd. All Americans should defend our country. Our country is not under attack. U.S. mainland is not under attack. Yeah, 9/11 happened, but, there's a whole backstory to that, and one day I'll share it with you. But right now, our children don't want to go overseas and die for some other cause. So the military industrial complex benefits for it. And when they return home, nobody gives a shit about them. We've got 44 veterans that take their lives every day. Nobody cares. I haven't heard any of these generals speak up or create a foundation to help them. So at the end of the day, then we see all these broken promises. The Afghans that were left behind. Nobody cares. American public cares, but our generals and our politicians don't care. They talk about it. Yeah, we honor their service, blah, 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 blah. Bullshit. I'll tell you a personal example. I attended a memorial service, and the general officer came, and condoled with the family. 2 hours later, he forgot the Marine's name. I was shocked. My mind of like, hey, this is a screwed up organization. We've got general officers that can't remember a Marine's name that died. I mean, you got to be shitting me. That's not leadership. And then the same guy that we used to have this, like a wooden cross in our offices that we could hang our gear upon. So it became, quite chic to put the dead Marines, the Marines that gave their lives, it became quite chic to put their dog tags on these things. So, there's a stack of dog tags hanging off this as a way of remembrance. And when I was discussing this about my retirement, they wanted me to stick around. And I, as a point, I asked the general, I said, name me one person, whose dog tag is hanging off that cross. And you know what the sad part was? He couldn't. And he realized that. So that just tells you, at the end of the day, deep down, it's the younger Marines, the younger officers, the staff NCOs believe in our military, and our patriotism is taken advantage of. Because the institution as a whole, the military as a whole, doesn't really care. That's the sad part about it. So why should anybody else's son and daughter join the military and go fight overseas when quite frankly, there's no need. We have no business in Taiwan. China is not going to attack Taiwan. Look at the numbers. They almost do $1 trillion worth of trade a year between the two countries. And China is not dumb. They're not going to give up $1 trillion. They already control Taiwan for all intents and purposes. So why do they need to go occupy that place? Actually have $1 trillion worth of trade going on between the two countries. There's no reason for it. It just doesn't make any sense. And, the same thing, we can have that discussion about Ukraine, Russia, and NATO expansion. Did we taunt and poke and poke and poke and went from 19 NATO countries, when the Soviet Union collapsed, to 31 today? So these are all, gymnastics of how do we create conflict and how do we keep the military relevant and how do we keep growing the military budget. And the most latest budget is at $878 freaking billion. Think about that. That's the largest line item in that discretionary funding. It's absurd. And all that money is going to the pockets of the military industrial complex, for big, massive bonuses. It's going to the pockets of our generals, that go, once they retire, they go work for this military industrial complex. And it's going in the pockets of our politicians through the donations to the super PACs that they give. Or once a politician retires, they bring him on board as a consultant or a director. So the whole thing is a damn sham. And our kids' lives ain't worth it. So yes, in good faith, I cannot recommend it, honestly. I would rather, if push comes to shove and we need bodies, I'll go back in. But I wouldn't let my son go back in the Marine Corps. Because he's got children now, and they need a father. I'll do it, no problem. And the other thing is, why should our sons and daughters go live on these bases when our generals live in these big white houses, with chauffeur-driven cars, and our sons and daughters live in shitty housing, with mold? They just found out that the barracks in Camp Geiger in North Carolina at Camp Lejeune has got mold, and they have to shut down the barracks. That's the type of crap that our kids are living in. And nobody gives a shit. If you care, and if the officers and the senior enlisted walk through those barracks every week like they're supposed to, you'd see the damn mold. And then you take action. It should have never grown. Mold grows because of what? Humidity, and the place is not clean. Open the damn windows and clean it. It's that simple. Or the case of sexual harassment. I wouldn't want my daughter going to the military. Look what's going on down in Texas. We got to stop it. And the only way you stop it is take a stand. I was the 1st battalion that actually took women into combat because we needed women to search Afghan women. So, I took about a dozen women, and they all did great. They were fantastic. But the first thing I told my Marines was, you're my sons and those are my daughters. And you start any shit, you're going to see the wrath of Khan coming upon you. And they understood that. We didn't have a single issue because they knew where I stood very clearly. So it does work if commanders take a stand. But if you're going to be a marshmallow and just waffle around the issue and you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, then shit's going to happen. So we got to toughen up at the end of the day. The bottom line is, our children should serve. I'm a big believer of it, but they should serve in the right organization, the right military, not the current military. For the last 80 years, this military's changed. It's not the military that General Marshall helped create. And then all of a sudden, things went haywire. So we got to get back to the basic, and it starts right at the top. And these generals and politicians have to be patriotic as much as they expect us. Don't play on my patriotism. You need to be patriotic. Don't chase the dollars of the military industrial complex. Patriotism isn't about putting money in your pocket. It's about servitude and leadership. That's all I got. Stay rugged. Khan out.